In this video, we'll be testing this NTK Cherokee GT 6-person tent for its ease of setup, takedown, spaciousness, comfort, and more. I bought this Cherokee GT tent from Amazon. Here's what the packaging looks like, and here's what it looks like out of the box. Inside the package, I got this carry bag, the tent body, the rainfly, poles in a carry case, stakes, and guidelines in another carry case. I put affiliate links below if you want to check it out. To set up this Cherokee GT tent, first lay the tent body on the ground. Next, grab the two white fiberglass poles and insert them into the two blue pole sleeves at the center of the tent. Then stake the tent down lightly at the four corners, and I highly recommend this for an easier setup. Then prop one of the poles up first by securing both ends of the pole into these pins, one at each corner of the tent. Do the same with the other pole, adjust the pole sleeves, and then attach all the 8 pole clips around the tent body. Now unfold the rainfly, spread it out, and place it on the ground upside down. Then grab the last red fiberglass pole, and this is to be inserted down the center of the rainfly here to be secured with these small red pockets at each end, as well as 2 straps in between the pockets. Then grab the rainfly by the rainfly pole and drape it over the tent. Position the rainfly pole with one end over the door at the front of the tent, and then secure the rainfly using these 4 S-hooks of the rainfly to the 4 rings at the corners of the tent. There's also one of these straps along each pole which can tie up to better align the rainfly. After that, attach the 4 guy lines to these orange loops on the outside of the rainfly, guy out the entire tent, and then stake down the 2 vents at each width of the tent. Altogether, it took me about 13 minutes to set up the entire NTK Cherokee GT 6-person tent on my own, and here's a full time lapse of it. Taking down the Cherokee 6-person tent is just the opposite of the setup, and it took me about 10 minutes for the entire takedown and pack up. And here's another time lapse for that. For more details on the setup, takedown, and pack up, as well as tips on how I set this up on my own, I have this separate video on my channel. The peak height in this Cherokee GT tent is about 70 inches, and I can stand upright under the peak height no problem with a few inches of headroom left above me. I'm also able to stand upright on fairly thick air mattresses and even bounce around on them, but the peak height is only at the center, so when I take 2 small steps back, my head would touch the top of the tent right here. The length inside this Cherokee 6-person tent is about 9 feet and 7 inches, and the width is also 9 feet and 7 inches. I could fit 6 regular sleeping pads inside the tent, and here's what having 6 pads looks like. You do have to sleep shoulder to shoulder, but there's still this small space here to fit a little bit of camping gear. It can be quite a tight fit though, especially if you have to sleep at the sides of the tent. When I raise my arm up, it touches the wall of the tent, and so does my head when I sit up on the pad. Instead of 6 pads, you can fit 2 almost queen-sized camping mattresses instead, which fits 4 people, and I think it's a much more comfortable fit. There's also quite a bit of leftover room for storing gear, which is always very nice to have. But just take note that both my mattresses are actually slightly smaller than a true queen, and even so the fit was already very snug, with hardly any wiggle room at all. Basically, the length of the tent is too short to fit 2 actual queen beds. This Cherokee 6-person tent has a single door on the front length of the tent. The door measures about 51 inches in length and 43 inches in width, so it's actually pretty big in size. It also measures about 55 inches from the ground to the top of the door, and I'm about 5'3", so I had to duck when getting in and out of the tent through the door. The door comes with 2 latches by the side to tie the door fabric up to keep it open, and it also comes with 2 orange zippers. For more ventilation, you can unzip the door and use the window mesh panel instead, which is super huge and is basically the same size as the door. There's only 1 window in this Cherokee tent, and the other 3 walls are made of mesh. This is what the bug net looks like up close, and the window also comes with 2 other orange zippers for zipping open and shut. The only problem here is that if you want to shut the window for more privacy, you first have to unzip the entire thing and then zip the door shut. On the other hand, if you want to unzip the window for even more ventilation, you can tie the window fabric up by the side as well. There are only the same 2 door latches by the side, one at the top and one at the bottom, but I found that I could tie up both the door and window fabric at the same time. For storage, this Cherokee 6-person tent has 2 pockets inside the tent, each measuring about 16 by 8 inches. Each pocket is actually split into 4 separate pockets, one at the back and another 3 at the front. There is also 1 lantern loop at the very top of the tent for some lighting at night, and 1 e-port at the bottom of the tent with a zippered closure. It's fully covered by the rainfly, but you can access it from the front of the tent at the right side. To test for heavy rain, I had to use this water hose on the Cherokee tent, and I concentrated the rainfall on these 2 walls of the tent. On this wall of the tent, the rain flag is super long and provides practically full coverage protection from the rain. All the water just dripped off the rainfly and onto the ground without touching the inner tent body at all. So after 45 minutes of this heavy rain, I found that the entire wall was still dry and not even the untaped inverted seam of the bathtub flooring was leaking. However, for this other wall, notice that the rainfly is a lot shorter. It still does provide some protection and most of the water didn't touch the tent body. But even so, I still noticed that quite a few smaller droplets of water were running over the inner grey tent body right here. After 30 minutes of this heavy rain, I noticed from the outside that the seam between the tent body and the bathtub flooring seemed to attract quite a bit of water, and this was when I first noticed leaking inside the tent. After 45 minutes of this heavy rain, this is the damage inside the tent. The untaped seam of the bathtub flooring was pretty much soaked, and almost the entire seam was leaking water into the tent. On a hot day, you can take the rainfly off from the outside and get quite a bit of ventilation from not just the door, but also from the 4 mesh panels of the tent. There are 2 larger mesh walls here and 2 smaller mesh walls here, but just bear in mind that there won't be as much privacy when the rainfly is off though. For rainy day ventilation, with the rainfly in place over the tent, the 4 mesh walls become 4 vents for some ventilation. The small mesh wall over the door gave me quite a bit of ventilation from the outside, and so did the small mesh wall at the back of the tent. However, the 2 larger mesh wall vents surprisingly didn't give me quite as much ventilation and exposure to the outside. Because the rainfly is super long, I couldn't really stake it out much. The most that I could get it away from the tent body was only about 9 inches from the outside. Also, on the inside of the tent, I found that the rainfly was almost flushed with the mesh wall, which limits ventilation. The flooring of this Cherokee 6-person tent is made of polyethylene, and the bathtub feature extends up to about 10 inches. The rest of the tent is made of 68D polyester taffeta, and the rainfly has a waterproof rating of 2500 millimeters. So even after 45 minutes of heavy pouring rain, the tent body and rainfly were still dry. Except for the rainfly, the rest of the seams inside the tent have not been factory taped. But those with less rainfly protection have been inverted, like the tent body to bathtub flooring seam, the vertical seams, as well as the door seams. The seams themselves are pretty good quality and double stitched with no loose threads, but I noticed that some holes in the seams are a little larger than others. The mesh is just regular mesh. It definitely doesn't look or feel anything like no seam or even micro mesh. The zippers are also decent quality. I didn't have snagging issues on the window at all. But for the door, just bear in mind that the design of this rain cover will sometimes get in the way of the zippers. So from the outside, I hold the rain cover away when zipping it up, and from the inside, I push the door out of the way when zipping. I do wish the zippers had different colors for the door and window though. All the poles are made of fiberglass, but they're nicely color coded, and the carry bag is made of polyester as well, I think, and decent quality too. This Cherokee 6-person tent has a packed size of 26 by 12 by 8.5 inches. Here's what it looks like beside a Coleman 2-person sunroom tent and a 32-ounce Nalgene bottle, and it weighs just slightly over 15 pounds for everything. For pros, I found the setup decently easy, and I was able to put up the entire tent on my own, no problem at all, even though I'm not very tall. The take down and pack up was easy as well. Even though the carry bag can't be expanded, everything fit back in super easily. I also liked that I was able to stand up at the peak height of the tent and even walk around and jump around a little bit. But then again, I'm not very tall. Rain protection in this Cherokee tent is also pretty decent. If you found this helpful so far, please help me hit the like button, thank you, and I really appreciate it. And this is not a con, but I do wish that they taped this seam instead of making it just inverted, so it'll last longer under heavy rain. If you don't have this tent yet, I recommend buying an NTK tent with more rainfly protection, like the Colorado or something. One con I found was that the window wasn't as user-friendly as I would have liked. I had to unzip the window before I could get to the door. Another con is that rainy day ventilation could be better with bigger vents or more vents, and they could have used this space at the back to add another window for more ventilation as well. Honestly, this Cherokee 6-person tent reminds me a lot of my Coleman Sundome 6-person tent. It has about the same level of rain protection but better ventilation, plus it has a window at the back too. And it was a little bit cheaper too. So before making any decision, I recommend checking out both these tents and their prices. And what better way to compare these two tents amongst other tents as well than to have another best of video on this topic. I highly recommend that you check out this video that I'll leave on the screen here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.